So what's the difference between a marketing campaign that absolutely takes off and one that just fizzles out? Well, I can tell you it's not magic and it's definitely not luck. It's a blueprint. And today, we're going to pull apart a campaign that delivered an incredible 101.7% return on investment just to show you exactly how it was built. All right, let's kick things off with a core idea from the master himself, Philip Kotler. I mean, this quote right here, it's the whole game in a nutshell. You've got to know exactly who you're talking to, and then you have to give them something genuinely great. Sounds simple, right? But getting this right is literally the difference between a huge win and a total flop. So let's meet our main character for this story, a company called BioSearch Pharmaceutical Incorporated, or BPI. Now, they had this drug called Salucitan, which was designed to reduce cholesterol. The problem was they were going head-to-head with a massive competitor, and their sales had completely flatlined. They were in a really tough spot. So, what they do? BPI launched a brand new marketing program. And the results? A mind-blowing 101.7% return on investment. Let that sink in. For every single dollar they put into this thing, they got that dollar back, plus another dollar and change on top. This wasn't just a success, this was an absolute home run. And that, of course, brings us to the big question we're tackling in this explainer. How on earth did they do it? How did a product that was struggling so badly suddenly turn into this massive financial success? Well, the answer is in a super powerful 3-step design process that, honestly, you can use for almost anything, not just marketing. So let's break down exactly how they pulled this off, starting with step 1. It all begins with something called level 0, or the input. Think of this as all the critical work you have to do before your campaign even gets out the door. Your input is basically your foundation. It's all about nailing the answers to 3 huge questions. Who exactly are we trying to talk to? Where are we going to find them? And what are we actually going to say? Getting this right from the jump is what keeps you from wasting all your time and money. If you get it wrong, well, nothing else you do is going to matter. BPI's big aha moment came when they figured out they weren't really marketing to patients. They needed to be talking to the doctors who prescribed the medicine. Their research showed these doctors just didn't know enough about Salistatin's benefits. They were the real target. And that one single insight, that changed the entire game. Now, just look at the contrast here. On one side, you've got BPI, who knew exactly who their audience was and what they needed, scientific proof. And on the other side, you have Google Glass. Who was that for? Tech nerds? Fashion models? Nobody really knew. They completely misunderstood the need and, well, it was a total market failure. The results really do speak for themselves. And this is the bottom line. Getting the input wrong is a fatal mistake. It's like trying to build a skyscraper on quicksand. You burn through money, you waste precious time, and you end up just shouting your message into an empty room because the people who needed to hear it were never there in the first place. Okay, so you've nailed your input, you're ready to go, you launch. And the very first thing you need to look at is the immediate response. This is level 1, the reaction. This is your first signal from the real world telling you if you're on the right track. The reaction basically tells you if people are even paying attention. You know, it's like the first 5 seconds of a conversation. It decides whether the other person leans in or just totally tunes you out. Are they curious? Are they interested? Or are they already looking for the door? A positive reaction is what buys you the right to keep talking. And check this out, this is BPI's success in black and white. After they held these educational seminars for the doctors, the feedback was just incredible. I mean, look at these scores. A 4.8 out of 5 for usefulness? That's insane. The doctors were hooked, they found it totally relevant, and they got why it mattered. This was the giant green light they were looking for. Because you have to remember, if that first reaction is negative, it's over. The conversation is done before it even starts. Your audience will never even get to hear about how great your product is because something about the name or the packaging or the very first thing you said already turned them off. You want to see some classic examples of bad reactions? Avert varicidal tissues scared people away because the name sounded way too close to suicidal. Fingo cereal didn't scare anyone, it just got a collective meh. People just didn't care. And my personal favorite, hey, there's a monster in my room spray, which terrified kids by basically confirming, yep, there's definitely a monster in here. Game over. Okay, so you nailed the input. You got a great reaction. That opens the door to the deepest, most powerful stage of them all, level 2, learning. This is where you go beyond just a good first impression and actually start to change how people think. Now, learning isn't just about throwing a bunch of facts at someone. It's about giving them new information in a way that truly shifts their whole attitude about your product or your idea. This is the engine of real change. This is where you create a true believer, not just a customer. Here's a kind of weird example of what happens when learning fails. The roundabout paradox. Statistically, roundabouts are way safer. They slash serious injuries by 78%. But they often cause more little fender benders. So why is that? It's because the learning part of the equation failed. Nobody ever really taught drivers how to use them properly. And this is exactly what BPI knocked out of the park. Those seminars they held, they weren't just sales pitches. No, they were carefully crafted educational sessions, packed with clinical data and scientific proof, all designed to fundamentally change how those doctors thought about salistatin. They were designed for learning. So how do you actually change someone's attitude? Well, it usually boils down to one of three main strategies. One, you can change their beliefs, like when Hellman started pointing out that its mayonnaise had omega-3s. Two, you can change what they think is important, like when Pepsi made freshness a big deal for soda. Or three, you can add something totally new, like when Colgate added an antibacterial ingredient to its toothpaste. All right, we've walked through the three critical stages of the design. Now let's bring it all home. Let's connect to this blueprint directly to the bottom line. How does this whole process actually turn into cash? Here it is, the formula BPI used. And don't worry, it's actually really simple. You just take the net benefits of your program, so the money it brought in minus what it cost, you divide that number by the total cost, and then you multiply by 100. That's it. That's your return on investment. So this is it. The entire blueprint, all on one slide. It's really just a chain reaction. You start with a rock-solid input to make sure you're talking to the right people. Then you spark a positive reaction so they actually want to listen. You use that opening to drive real learning that changes their attitude. And that change in attitude is what drives new behavior, which creates business impact and ultimately a fantastic ROI. And that is the number one thing to take away from all this. BPI's jaw-dropping 101.7% return didn't just fall out of the sky. It was earned. It was the direct result of a careful, disciplined process, moving step by step from input to reaction to learning. So I'll just leave you with this question. This framework, it's not just for giant multi-million-dollar marketing campaigns. Think about a presentation you've got coming up, or an idea you need to sell to your boss, or even just a tough conversation you need to have. What could you accomplish if you intentionally designed it for the right input, a positive reaction, and genuine learning?